Okay, so Miss Stacy, I think we're going to look at your paragraph.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's read through the directions again just to make sure we're on track. So I'm going to read each part of my meal paragraph aloud and one part at a time. And if I see an error, I'll stop and fix it and then reread that part again.
Okay.
After I read the part, I'm going to discuss and we're going to rate my work. And it looks like on needs work, almost there on target.
Okay, so that's where I'll help you rate it.
And then we'll just keep repeating for each section. And then when I'm done, my homework tonight is to revise any section that needs work or is almost there.
Okay, so then after I give you some feedback and we work through this together, then you're going to, at home, or if we have time, fix up those things and add the detail. Okay, great. Let's have a look.
Okay, so a bicycle can be considered a system because it has parts that move together.
Okay, so the first section is main idea, and the first thing you had to do, the first requirement is introduces why a cell can be considered a system. So we're talking about a bicycle as your example. You said a bicycle can be considered a system because it has parts that move together. So yeah, I think you're on target. You've mentioned why it can be considered a system, so you could highlight that part.
So this might be a little bit more challenging on our computer here.
But you're going to have it in paper in front of you, but you could just tick it or circle it or highlight it.
How do I do it on here?
You could change the color of the, what would that do? Okay, so we've
perfect.
There you go.
Great. Okay, so then I also need to include specific detail, and I say because it has parts that move together. What do you think about?
I think that, I think it's a good start, but I think that one is almost there because, I mean, there's like a tree's branches blowing in the wind might move together, but it's not really a system.
Okay, so I need to explain that further.
That needs more detail. The parts that move together, maybe you need more detail to explain what really makes that a system.
Okay.
So that one might be the middle one.
Okay. So now my explain. For example, the spokes connect to the rim and the rim supports the tire.
Okay, so the first requirement is the function of each organelle or part is clearly explained. So you've said three parts, the spokes, the rim, and the tire, which is great that you had three parts. And you kind of mentioned what the rim does. You said the rim supports the tire. But you haven't really said what the spokes or the tire do.
Yeah, because I say the spokes connect the rim, but I don't really say what the purpose is.
Yeah, you said connect, which is good, but you haven't really said
why we need spokes.
Right. You haven't explained in detail what the function of the spokes are.
Or why we need the tire, what the purpose of the tire is.
Right. So in terms of that first one, the function of each organelle is clearly explained. I would say that one needs work for sure.
Okay. Okay, and then the function of each organelle is accurate.
Well,
I feel like that's true.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned what the rim does, and that was accurate. So that one's on target. You just need to do the same for the others.
Why didn't that work? I wish I had a shortcut for this. Okay, so then vocabulary related to the organelle is included.
Yeah, I think it's great. You used all three correct
tire
words, right? Those are the correct words for those parts of the bicycle. You didn't say spokes are like the metal spiky bits. You called them spokes, and that's what they're called. So I think that part is great. You're on target.
Okay. Explanation of how organelles work together is detailed.
Yeah, you've kind of mentioned that they connect, but you haven't mentioned in detail how they really work together. So I think that one needs work. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think I need, work, because I say, the connect is not enough. So in some ways, I feel like that's lacking kind of the most.
Yeah, that's probably the area that you really need to
improve on.
Yeah.
And then explanation of how the organelles work together is clear. So I think what I have written is clear.
it's clear. You said they're all connected,
Yeah.
right? So it's clear that they're all connected, but you haven't really explained how then they work together. So that one's okay. That one's on target, I think.
Okay.
Great. What's the next step?
So analysis. The purpose of the bicycle is to move a person from one place to another. The spokes, rim, and tire work together to help move the bicycle.
Okay. So the first requirement in analysis is the concept of a system is explained in detail. I think you've said like the purpose of the bike, right?
Yeah.
You've mentioned that what is a bike for? It's for moving something. So that's really clear. But again, you could include a bit more detail about how that's a system.
Yeah.
So maybe that one's almost there.
Because like for our opening task today, we talked a little bit about, a system's kind of two parts there. There's the individual parts of each or a function of each part, and then how they're working together.
Right. So you mentioned how the bicycle as a whole moves, like that's its purpose. So you mentioned kind of the purpose of the whole bicycle, but maybe how the different parts help make that work. I know it's tricky.
Yeah,
luckily for you guys, you'll just have to circle it or use a highlighter or something. It'd be much easier.
Explain how the interactions between organelles makes the cell a system. Sorry, let's try that again. Explanation of the interaction between organelles makes the cell a system is clear.
Okay. I think maybe you've got the three parts.
And they work together to move the bicycle.
Okay, so that's okay. You've said that those three parts work together, but how they interact
isn't explained.
Isn't really
so, but I think in terms of the writing is clear, but it's this middle one that I need to work on.
Adding more detail.
Yep, adding more detail. Would you agree with that?
Right. Yeah, I think that's okay. So that can be on target, but you just need to go back and add more detail about how those individual parts interact.
Perfect. Okay, so now main idea is restated in a fresh way, and I have nothing else on my screen or on my page. So I realized I forgot to do the link.
Yeah, so don't forget at the end you need to link back to your main idea.
So I'm going to go ahead and click this bad boy.
Yep, so your main idea, if you read the first sentence, was a bicycle can be considered a system because it has parts that move together. I remember you were going to add more detail to that because that was one that kind of needed a little bit more detail. But then you need to think of it a new way to just kind of summarize that so that idea that what you're trying to say, if it's a system or not, is really clear for the reader. Okay.
And you know what I've just noticed that I should have seen when I read it in the beginning, if you look at my first line here, a bicycle be considered. So I got to be careful when I'm reading because I forgot I can here.
Yeah, and that's a really important point because I think we often read really quickly and we think that that therefore, like we skip over where there's a missing word.
Yeah, because our brains are automatically put it in there.
Right, our brain just thinks it's there. So that's why like sometimes reading with like one finger and pointing is important.
So then can be read without noticeable errors. I think once this is fixed, I think my writing's pretty clear.
Yeah,
I definitely need to add detail and I'll need to check that again.
Right.
But at this point, I think I'm pretty on target here.
Great. So now you know what you need to fix.
All right. Well, now let's work on your paragraph.
All right. I can't wait.
Now if I can just